Well, good afternoon, Cohort B. I hope you are enjoying this beautiful sunny Friday. All right, so as you know, we have a test on Monday, and I don't want to overload you with too much stuff, but we are going to start ecology today, okay, because we can't afford to throw away days. So, let me just say that before we look at this, that any homework, okay, in ecology that may be there today, you don't have to worry about it until after your test. Obviously, you're going to study for the test on the weekend. Okay, so so don't forget the electricity test is on Monday, and it's a big test. I did put a formula sheet here for you. So if you're looking at the formula sheet here, okay, this is the formula sheet that I am going to include for your test. So please go ahead and remember you need to practice these problems. So the calculation problems, make sure you practice them. I mean, don't forget there's some theory that you need to look at too, but for the calculation section, okay, just you use this as a reference. So this will be the formula sheet you get. You'll also have an electrostatic series, in case you're wondering. So the electrostatic series is this list, which we've talked about several times. You'll have a list like this, so that'll be part of it. Okay, so here's your electrostatic series, and you can just take a look at that, and you can see the list of substances on the series. The one at the top being more negative, tendency to become negative, okay, and gain electrons, and then at the bottom, tendency to lose electrons and become positive. Okay, so you get a list like that as well. Okay, so you don't have to memorize that. Don't forget to review the stuff on resources and that assignment that I gave you. Okay, so that is right here. Don't forget that. And practice the calculations. Practice, practice, practice. That's how you get better at these things. Use the formula sheet to practice. Okay, and don't forget some of the other things that we discussed on here. So these are my study suggestions. So make sure you take a look at it. Make summary notes on the theory. Okay, if you want, then that's stuff you have to memorize. But then, so that's this here. And for this here, make sure you practice the calculations. Doing problem solving with calculations is a skill. It takes practice, not reading and memorization. It's all about the practice. Okay, so the only way you're going to know if you get it is if you test yourself. So pick problems off the worksheets to try. I've posted all the answers. So for example, even going back to the electricity calculations, Flynn here, that had people whose names resemble yours so much. Okay. Yeah, I put the answers here. I'm sorry, my writing is terrible on these because I had to write it with a mouse because I couldn't find my tablet last night, so I just wrote it with the mouse and the computer. But all the answers, you'll see them there. That's supposed to be a 1. 0.01 amps. Okay, I'll write it in. But yeah, there you go. So your answers are posted. So what you should do is try one of these questions. Let's say, for example, you try to do number 7, okay, on your own. You try it with the worksheet. You go, okay, 5 coulombs of charge, 350 joules of energy. What is the potential difference? Well, that would be voltage is energy divided by charge, okay? So 350 divided by 5, 70 volts. But use your formula sheet, okay, and go through some of these questions. You don't have to do them all again, but pick a sampling of the questions. Make sure you can do, until you feel confident that you can do it. You don't have to do them all again. You've hopefully already done them, okay? And the key is doing them without help, okay, with the formula sheet next to you, pretending it's like a test. Okay, and then if you get stuck, of course, since it isn't really a test, you're just pretending, you can ask for help if you're really stuck, but you'll not know if you need help unless you try that yourself first. So that's how you study for calculations or math type problems. All right, so anyway, that's the review, so make sure you do that on the weekend. I'm not going to give new homework today, but there will be homework after your test on Monday We might not have a new lesson on Monday, but there'll be homework from today's lesson that you have to worry about. So this is for Monday night, I guess, if you like. Remember that we can't afford to throw away days. So our last unit, and this is, in today's world, very important, ecology. Okay. So I'm going to tell you what ecology is all about. It's the study of living things, okay, and how those living things interact with each other, and also how they interact with the earth as their environment, okay? So the study of living things, how they interact with each other and with their environment. And that is basically what ecology is, okay? So I'm going to go through a few of these things today. We're going to get up to, we'll do this one and this one, lesson 1 and 2. But remember, this homework that you see here, so we're going to go back to using textbook homework. That homework that you see there is not until Monday. Okay, you want to start looking at that. We may not get a chance to get through all of ecology. Okay, so just keep that in mind. All right, so we'll start ecology in a moment, but before I forget to say this, your RST. Okay, so this is the RST, which is the rich summative task. We're going to have an end-of-year test. It's not an exam, okay, and it's not going to be as long as an exam would normally be, okay, but it's going to be similar in the sense, so it's not an exam, it's a test that covers all the units that we've studied: space, chemistry, electricity, and ecology. Okay, so all 4 units. Okay, well, I guess I'll write all 4 units. The difference, so it's a little shorter than an exam, and I'm gonna allow, you are allowed 1 hand written page. Okay, so 1 handwritten page, double-sided, eight and a half by 11, okay, in dimensions, not some gigantic poster, okay, that you bring in, but 1 8.5 by 11 inches, not feet, right? Okay, page that you can bring in. Has to be handwritten. It can't be photocopied or done on the computer or anything like that. You have to write it by hand. And you can write anything you want on it that you think would help you write an end-of-year test. Okay, so that's different from an exam where we normally wouldn't have that. So you might want to get started working on that pretty soon. Your test, your end-of-year test, okay, just looking at a calendar here, your test is going to be on Thursday, December 12th. So that's the last time I'll see you in this block. So for cohort B, this is Thursday, September 12th. Now, in the event that you are self-isolating or you can't come to school, I will make arrangements for you to do it at home, okay? But it's something that you're going to need to do one way or the other, barring some catastrophe, okay? But like, as long as you're physically able to do it and everything else, and nothing really bad is happening, you just have to maybe self-isolate so you can't come to school. Well, under those conditions, I don't want to let this one go, so I would like to, the way I would like to do it is we'll make arrangements if on the hopefully unlikely event that you can't make it to school that day. All right, so that's for cohort B. For cohort A, lucky you. I shouldn't say September. What am I doing? It's November 12th. You're going to write it on Friday, the 13th. Okay. Lucky you. That's a lucky day, right? Friday the 13th. So there you go. Okay, so you might want to start preparing this page, your little cheat sheet or whatever you want to call it. Students were asking me today, what do we write on it? Well, don't write, you do not need to include, okay? You will have included a formula sheet periodic table, all the stuff I normally give you. So you don't need to write that stuff on your formula, on your cheat sheet, okay? Periodic table, etc. So I will show you all the stuff I'm going to give you, and that stuff you do not need to include on your formula, sorry, on your cheat sheet. Okay, so anyway, some people might want to get started working. We have less than 2 weeks left. Like your test, your end of your test is 2 weeks from yesterday. Okay, so you only have approximately 2 weeks left. We're not going to spend the entire rest of the course talking about ecology. Like I'll give you maybe some time for review, but honestly, we don't really have that much time. I'm sorry to say. Maybe you get one class for that. But otherwise, you're going to have to review this material on your own. So I'm going to keep ecology on the short side of things, not give you too much work there, so you can get started. But ecology is on the final exam, so not the final exam, the end of your test, the rich summative task. And you know, you can include whatever information you think will help you with that test when you're doing your handwritten page. Now the handwritten page, it just has to be handwritten, and you can make the writing small if you want. Organize yourself so you can find information easily. And you know, when you're making this, it's kind of like reviewing, so you might find it helpful. Okay? All right, so now that I've told you about the rich summative task at the end of the year, I would like now to talk about ecology. Okay, so let's get right into it. Ecology is the study of living things and the non-living environment and the interactions between those things. So let's first talk about the spheres of Earth, okay, as we sometimes call them. So there, you can think of Earth. Earth itself, of course, is a sphere. Sorry to you flat earthers out there, but Earth is a sphere after all. It's just simply fact, okay? And we can sort of think of it as these sort of intersecting spheres that we have different names for, okay? So the solid Earth, lithos means solid or like basically ground, okay? So the crust of the Earth that you can walk and stand on and everything else is called the lithosphere. Now underneath the ocean, there's the ocean floor, which is part of the lithosphere also, okay? So that's the lithosphere. Now 70% of Earth's surface is covered in water. That is the hydrosphere. Okay, so there's lithos and hydro, meaning water. So all the water on the Earth, the lakes, the rivers, the streams, the oceans, of course, are all part of the hydrosphere. Now, because we did the space unit, you know that Earth is surrounded by an atmosphere, which is the gases that surround Earth, a very thin layer of gas, relatively speaking. It's maybe about, you know, a few tens of kilometers in thickness, okay, that surround our planet, and that's what you're breathing. Of course, is the atmosphere. Now, unique to the Earth, as far as we know, is intersecting all three of the other spheres, the atmosphere, the hydrosphere, and the lithosphere. There are living things, okay? And those living things make up what we call the biosphere. So this entire planet is literally covered in life. Everywhere you look, even when you look in the desert, you'll find life there. You look at the bottom of the ocean, you'll find life there. You look in the Arctic regions, you will find life there. Life is basically everywhere, except not at the core of the Earth. That's just lithosphere there. Okay, so the Earth is basically iron and nickel core. Okay, so once you get down past deep enough, I guess is where you'll have to go. You'll find there's a point where you won't find any living things then. It's like molten rock. Okay, and that's too harsh for life to exist. Okay, so anyway, these are the four spheres of Earth. The solid part, the lithosphere, the watery surface, the hydrosphere. The atmosphere is our, you know what the atmosphere is, that's what we're breathing, okay, and the biosphere. okay, which is the living part of our planet. Okay, so now, ecology, you can't get around it. There's lots of words you're going to need to know. Some of these words you'll be familiar with, and some of them will be new to you. So let's just take a look at these one at a time. There are lots of things to memorize in ecology. So let's start with this. Some of this you'll know. Okay, so first of all, what is ecology? Well, ecology is the study of how organisms, which are living things, interact with each other and with their physical environment. Okay? So, how, let's say, a lion interacts with a zebra is part of ecology, right? It's part of the ecology of Africa, let's say, where they live. And so, but a lion's life is not just the prey animals that it eats. Also, it needs to drink water and needs to breathe air and so on. So it interacts with its environment in a variety of ways, a lion. Okay, and the study of those interactions, that's what ecology is all about. Now, the word biotic. Bio means living. Okay, that's why biotic means living or once living. Okay, and these are factors in an ecosystem. We'll explain what an ecosystem is shortly. But let's say like an animal leaves scat, which is poop, okay, on the forest floor. Well, that's biotic material. Okay, it came from a living thing. It's got lots of living bacteria in it. Okay, and then that's it, right? A dead skeleton. Okay, it's Halloween. Might as well talk about skeletons. The skeleton of an animal. Let's say we go out in the woods and we find a deer that is now rotting and decomposing, or maybe it's an old bone from an animal. Once I found a bone of a whale, believe it or not, around the St. Lawrence, on the shores of the St. Lawrence River. And it was a backbone, like part of its backbone. So it was a disc from the spine of a whale, and the whale's body was very, at advanced rate of decomposition, so it's just the skeleton left. But that's biotic. Even though now it's just a skeleton, it's a biotic factor, okay, because it was once alive. Okay, and that's it. Now, eventually, a once living thing becomes abiotic. So, like, once the body has broken down completely into minerals and stuff like that, those individual minerals that were in the bones would be abiotic. So, abiotic is non-living. Okay, so sometimes you put an A in front of something when we mean it's not something. Okay, so yeah, I can't think of an example at the moment because my brain is kind of fried right now. But there's biotic. Abiotic is the opposite of biotic. Okay. Yeah, so non-living. Water is non-living. Air is non-living. Oxygen in the air is non-living. The minerals in the rocks are not alive. Okay, so we call these abiotic factors, but they all play a role for living things. The air, the water, the minerals, they're important nutrients and stuff like that, okay, that we require for life are in the non-living environment. But if it's not alive, we call it abiotic. Now, an organism is an individual living thing. So you are organisms. Okay? A squirrel is an organism. Okay? Now, a species is a group of individuals that have the same characteristics. Okay? And basically very similar DNA. So, for example, humans make up a species on this planet called Homo sapiens. Okay, so, and chimpanzees would be another species, squirrels would be another species, dogs would be a species, cats would be a species, right? Lions, tigers, bears, oh my, right? They're all species. Okay, so the important thing about a species is that the individuals can mate and produce new members of their species, so they produce offspring. Okay, so there are, various species on this planet. Okay, and humans are just one example of that. All right, a population is a group of individuals from the same species, okay, that live in a certain area. So there's the population of Ottawa, we were talking about the human population, but there's also a population of plants in Ottawa. There's a population of trees, like of, say, particular types of trees. Let's say the ash tree population, or the oak tree, or the maple tree population in Ottawa. There are populations of squirrels, there are populations of skunks, there are populations of raccoons and bears, and etc. Okay? Yeah, so a population is individuals together that form a group, okay, that we call a population, and they live in the same area. Okay, so it's a population of Ottawa, that would be sort of an area here. A community, on the other hand, and we use this word means something slightly different, okay, in ecology compared to how we normally use this word. So a community is all the populations of all the different species. So the community of Ottawa in ecological terms would include the maple trees, it includes the grass, it includes the mosquitoes, all the different populations of all the animals and plants, including ourselves, including even right down to bacteria. Okay? So all of those populations put together make up what we call a community. Okay? And they live together in a particular area. Okay, that's called a community. An ecosystem, okay, consists of the community, so these are all the living things, along with their physical environment. Okay? So it's the organisms and their physical environment. So now we live in an ecosystem here in Ottawa. It's part of what's called the Northern Boreal Forest. And the Northern Boreal Forest includes populations of many different species. And it also includes various abiotic factors, including like lakes and rivers and so on. We have an abundance of fresh water in this ecosystem. We also have certain like weather patterns, 4 seasons, for example. Okay, these would be abiotic factors in our ecosystem. The biosphere we already talked about. That's all of the ecosystems on the planet. Okay, the living part of those ecosystems. And this word here, this one's very important. Biodiversity. Biodiversity is, like, diversity just means how many different types of organisms, how many different kinds of species you have. So on our planet, we are losing biodiversity on our planet as a direct result of human activity. So when we cut the most biodiverse ecosystems on the planet are rainforests. Okay? In fact, forests in general, but particularly old growth rainforests. They have a tremendously diverse population of organisms there. And when we clear cut the trees, we are killing that biodiversity, because then the surviving organisms, actually very few of the organisms can survive in the clear cut region, okay, that you've cut down. And so what happens is you have now diminished the populations of various species, and you get less biodiversity. Okay? In fact, the health of an ecosystem is often measured by its biodiversity. And the more biodiverse it is, the healthier it is. All right then. Okay, so now that we've talked about that, there's only a couple of other things I want to talk to you about today. This is pretty straightforward. So the chart at the top really says it all. Okay, so there's an organization to everything. So we already talked about an organism. An organism is an individual, but a population, okay, would be the members of the individuals of all one species put together make up a population in an area, and all the different population makes a community. So for example, in a forest, each pine tree is an individual organism. All the pine trees make up a population, and all the plant and animal species here make up the community in the forest. Okay? So, an ecosystem includes the living and non-living environment in which they live. Okay, so for example, the coastal ecosystem in the southeastern United States includes the living organisms and the environment in which they live. Now, the biosphere encompasses all the ecosystems on the Earth. We talked about that already. And this just summarizes that down here. Okay? So now, my goal for today is that you know what the words biosphere, ecosystem, biodiversity, what all these words mean. And I'm going to finish with this. So, photosynthesis. Do you know what photosynthesis is? Okay, so I just want to basically define it for you just briefly. Photosynthesis is a chemical reaction that takes place in plants, and there are other photosynthetic organisms like plankton that live in the sea, called phytoplankton, the ones that can photosynthesize. So various species can photosynthesize, which means they manufacture their own carbohydrates. For humans, we can't photosynthesize, so we eat other organisms to get our carbohydrates, including plants. We either eat plants or we eat other animals, right, to get them. Now, here's the deal. Here's how plants do it. It's kind of this magical process, okay? They take carbon dioxide. Okay, carbon dioxide. They take 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, combine it with 6 molecules of water, okay? And then through the process of photosynthesis, where light shines down on the plant, okay, and this chemical reaction takes place inside the green parts of the plant. That's where the photosensitive sites are located, okay, in a plant is the green parts where cells contain chlorophyll in the structure called the chloroplast. And what they do is they convert it to sugar, which is this guy here, C6H12O6 is glucose. That's the stuff we set on fire with a huge fireball. Plus they produce oxygen. So, funny enough, but plants are doing wonderful things for us. They're taking carbon out of the atmosphere, and that's always a good thing because we're putting too much back in by burning fossil fuels. And they also take some water, and they combine these things to produce carbohydrates, which is fuel for us, and oxygen, which we need to breathe. So plants are producing everything we need to live, okay? And that is, crucial for us. Now, what do we do with this? Well, we do exactly the opposite, okay? So what we do as a consuming organism that eats other organisms to get the food energy, what we do is we take the carbohydrate sugar that the plant produces, we breathe in the oxygen here, okay, and then in our cells, we produce this, which is a waste product that we breathe out. We exhale it, in other words, and we also exhale, we produce water, okay, which our body needs as well. Okay, so we actually do, that's the photosynthesis reaction backwards. So we have this nice sort of harmonious relationship, okay, plants and animals, when you think about it, because plants produce what we need, and then we give it back to the environment. Okay, and that is how plants and animals can have a harmonious relationship, right? So these nutrients like carbon and oxygen and water are being cycled, okay, through the environment, okay, and we're part of that cycle. So anyway, that's it for today. There's more that's coming shortly, but we'll do the electricity test first. Now, we've done the first 2 lessons, but don't worry about this homework until after the electricity test. Okay, so there are some questions there. We'll talk more about food webs if we have time after your test on Monday. Okay, we'll see how much time we have. I don't think it'll take the whole period, so we might have maybe 20 minutes or a half hour to talk about food webs. And yeah, so we'll get started with that on Monday. All right, guys, that's it for today. I hope you have a great weekend. Happy Halloween. Okay, and we'll talk to you soon.